Chapter 1. Rebirth, System Awakening. In a house in Manhattan, New York City, a handsome young man with black hair lay sprawled across a desk in a bedroom. "Ugh, my head," Noah groaned. "What happened?" A sharp pain shot through his skull. He clutched his forehead and pushed himself up on the desk, trying to sit. It felt like his head was splitting open. "Where is this?" After a long moment, his headache subsided enough for him to look around. The room was completely unfamiliar. He was sitting at a desk, staring at a computer screen, and he could have sworn he looked younger. Before he could figure it out, a voice echoed in his head. "Ding, summoner's memory fully awakened. System is loading." Huh? What was that? Noah blinked. The word system triggered a flurry of thoughts. Transmigration? Like in the novels? But I don't look different. His confusion was interrupted when the voice spoke again. "Please prepare, summoner. Memories are about to be loaded." Memories? What memories? Noah asked aloud. Bang! A flood of memories crashed into him. Pain flared in his head so violently that he blacked out, collapsing onto the desk. Silence fell over the room. Under the moonlight filtering through the window, Noah came to, clutching his forehead. The ache lingered like a bruise. He mumbled fragments. Parents, car accident, Captain America, Iron Man. Wait, am I in the Marvel Universe? The memories that had rushed in while he was unconscious filled in the gaps. He hadn't just shifted worlds, he'd been reborn. Today, he'd recovered memories of his previous life, and the system bound to him had unsealed. In this life, he was a Chinese American born in the US. His parents had died in a car crash a few years ago, leaving only savings and this house. He'd been living alone and was currently a high school student. Names from the Marvel films floated through his head. Captain America, Tony Stark. Noah hadn't read Marvel comics in his old life. He'd only watched the movies and watched explanatory videos. Comic characters were supposedly far stronger, so he silently hoped he'd landed in the movie universe rather than the comics. At least he had a system now. Maybe that would keep him safe. "System, are you there?" he asked, unsure of how to call it. "Hello, summoner. The League of Legends summoning system is at your service," the voice replied. League of Legends summoning system? Noah's mind snapped to the name he'd hated and loved in equal measure. He hadn't been a great player. He'd preferred chess and spectating matches, but he remembered that he'd been playing the game right before he died. He'd knocked his cup of water onto a power strip and been electrocuted. He'd seen that exact kind of transmigration in so many web novels that it felt surreal to live it himself. "What can you do?" he asked the system. "Summoner, this system can summon the power of heroes for you, granting you the strength of heroes from the game's lore. Summoning requires essence, which you obtain by completing quests. Summons can produce hero templates, hero skins, equipment, items, and world runes. When you summon a hero or skin template, you can directly acquire the power of that hero or skin as described in the lore. Please explore further on your own, summoner." Noah's thoughts jumped to Aurelion Sol, Bard, and Kindred, cosmic, top-tier beings in the game's lore. Demigods, aspects, demons, darken, ascended, void entities, the list of terrifyingly powerful beings went on. Skins also had their own universes, Dark Star, Shanghai Scrolls. If he could summon any of those, he'd be untouchable. First, though, he needed to know what kind of Marvel universe he was in. "System, is this the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the comic universe?" he asked. After detection, this universe corresponds to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as understood by the summoner, the system answered. Relief that felt almost physical washed over him. The MCU still had threats, Thanos, Celestials, but it was a lot less absurd than the comics' cosmic horrors. If he could one day summon something like Aurelion Sol, he'd be in good shape. "Open the panel, summoner. You have one free 10-pull beginner summon," the system prompted. "A beginner's pack?" Noah's heart quickened. He tried to open the panel mentally. A flash of blue light formed into an interface before his eyes. Inventory, summon, quests, personal information. It was simple and free of any recharge or paywall clutter. Definitely not a cash grab mobile game. "System, only I can see this panel, right?" "Yes, summoner." Noah selected summon. Two options appeared, summon and 10-pull summon. A single pull would cost 600 essence, a 10-pull 6,000, but in the corner of the 10-pull icon it read, "Free attempts, 1." "Is there a difference between a 10-pull and 10 single pulls?" he asked. "Yes, summoner. A A 10 pull grants an additional free treasure chest that can contain essence and other items. Not just 10 tiny bits of essence, Noah muttered. Okay, I'll trust you. He tapped 10 pull. The interface warped into a spinning blue vortex. After a violent tremor, 10 orbs of light and a blue treasure chest shot out and hovered in front of him. Noah grinned. So, do I tap them? He touched the first orb. Light dissolved into a small red potion, health potion, glass with an iron ring. Familiar and oddly satisfying. The system told him he could either store items in his inventory or physically take them, and when his hand closed, the bottle was real. Cool glass, faint weight in his palm. The next few orbs yielded more potions. Health potion, mana potion, a tear of the goddess, a ward, more health potions, another mana potion. 8 taps and no hero. No hero yet? Noah's excitement soured into impatience. He didn't know if there was a pity system or guaranteed hero drop. All he could do was hope the last orb would be lucky. He looked at it, bowed his head instinctively, and did the ridiculous little ritual he'd always used when hoping for a good draw in his old life. May Guanyin Bodhisattva bless me. May the Jade Emperor bless me. May the Tathagata Buddha bless me. May God bless me. Draw a hero. Draw a hero. He touched the final orb. It exploded in blinding light that raced toward his chest. Before he could react, the burst wrapped around him, cold and brilliant, and everything went white. Chapter 2. Happy Windman? Rune. After the light swallowed him, Noah felt like he'd slipped into a strange dream. In it, he was a young Ionian man with an older brother who doted on him. His brother went to a sword school to learn the blade arts, and the young Noah followed. Because of a rare talent, he was noticed by the sword master and taught the wind technique. Later, Noxus invaded, his master was killed, Noah was framed, and he became a wanderer. Death is like the wind, always by my side. The phrase drifted through Noah's mind, faint but familiar, the kind of line he'd heard in games. Congratulations, summoner, you have successfully summoned the hero, Swift-Wind Swordsman, Yasuo. The system prompt snapped him out of the daze. Noah blinked, still disoriented. He'd been doing a draw, a simple lottery, when a ball of light had slammed into him. Right. After a moment, his head cleared and memories began to bloom. Yasuo's memories, flashes of sword stances, the feel of wind technique. System, open the personal information panel, he said. Personal Noah. Hero panel, Swift-Wind Swordsman. Abilities, wind technique, magic. Yasuo's sword style is a magical sword technique, so there is magic within him. Noah read the panel. There were no numerical stats, no HP bars or numbers. Of course, his body hadn't been digitized. This was reality, not a game. He flexed his arm and discovered the muscles were more defined, stronger than before. The rest of his body felt reinforced too. Is the hero template changing my body? He muttered, feeling power thrumming beneath his skin. He had to try it. If Yasuo's techniques had been passed on, he wanted to know what a wind technique strike felt like in real life. No weapon included, though, he noted. He rummaged through his small apartment for something to substitute for a sword. No blades, no knives, only a baseball bat in a cupboard. He closed his eyes, felt the magic inside him, and replayed Yasuo's motions in his head. A whisper of wind slid along the bat in his hands. He thrust the bat forward and yelled, "Ha!" A line of sword chi, steel tempest, the basic thrust, ripped from the bat, punching through his bedroom door and leaving a jagged hole in the living room wall. Magic coalesced into wind all around him, lifting and supporting him. He pushed the doorway open and vaulted onto the dining table. He moved through the living room with unexpected agility. Wind wrapped his form, and his footwork sharpened. The feeling of sweeping blade in action, though he hadn't actually struck anyone. After a flip, he swung the bat and a surge of wind ripped up from the floor, forming a wind barrier before him. The table beneath him was ripped free and hung suspended in the air, held by the gale. Noah's eyes lit up. He channeled everything and shouted, "Last breath!" A torrent of wind erupted from his feet. He launched toward the floating table and swung the bat. The table split cleanly, as if cut by a sword. The wind wall vanished, and the pieces dropped to the floor. Even though he'd used a bat, the edges of the broken wood were perfectly smooth and flat, as if a blade had scored them. Supported by the wind, Noah drifted back to the floor, grinning. The thrill faded as he took in the wreckage. The living room looked like a storm had passed through. Okay, No more demolishing the apartment, he said to himself. If I keep this up, I'll have nowhere to live. He steadied himself and tried another ability. Magic coursed through him and formed a shield of swift wind, Yasuo's Way of the Wanderer passive. In the game, it required movement to stack the shield. Here he could shape it directly with magic, or use wind-powered motion to the same effect. The gust clung to him like a cloak. Yasuo's power is fun to use, Noah admitted, enjoying the buoyancy. No wonder he's the happy windman. If I pull someone like a Dragon King next, what would that even feel like? After he calmed the magic, he remembered the unopened treasure chest waiting in the system interface. He brought the panel back up. The chest hovered in the summoning window. Noah tapped it. The seams opened and light spilled out. 2 orbs, like the ones from his previous draw. He tapped one orb. Inside was an essence icon. 4,000 essence. He already had some. With this, he'd need another 2,000 to do another 10 draw. He couldn't help smiling. This system wasn't a scam. He tapped the second orb. The instant his finger left it, a shock of energy flared, bathing the room in green light. Noah shaded his eyes. When the glare faded, a rune hovered in the air before him, a green stone ringed by subtle ripples of power. Resolve rune. He recognized it immediately. This was the resolve rune, the one players chose at the start of every game. In the lore, it wasn't just an ordinary item, but one of the world runes, prime creations with titanic force. World runes could give life to barren planets or erase entire vistas. They leaked energy, violating conservation, condensing into Runeterra's magic, the source of all sorcery. Rise and his master Tyrus had once wandered the world guarding these runes, preventing mortals from touching them, but nations had still found them and waged brutal wars for their power. Now, one of those world runes floated before Noah. Chapter 3, starting out as Eternal Life, the first mission. System, is this a world rune? Noah swallowed and asked, staring at the rune floating before him. Yes, Summoner, displaying information on the world rune, the system replied. The panel opened and showed a single line, World Rune, Resolve. A powerful rune that grants the power of immortality. The Resolve rune continuously enhances your physical strength and greatly boosts your recovery ability. Summoner, please explore the rune's other powers yourself. Noah read the description, excitement and apprehension warring in him. A world rune was an incredibly powerful artifact. If he could bond with it, his strength would leap. But he also remembered the stories. Runes could corrupt. Brand had gone mad, and Rise's master Tyrus had been broken by rune power. He voiced his worry to the system. Summoner, rest assured, the power of this Resolve rune has been adjusted and limited by the system and will not affect the summoner. Furthermore, as the summoner's strength grows, the rune will gradually restore more of its original power. That put Noah's mind at ease. He didn't want to become another Brand. Being entirely on fire might look dramatic, but he preferred the way he looked now. He reached out and touched the rune. The energy around it didn't hurt him. It felt warm, almost comforting. The rune floated calmly in his palm. The power of immortality, he whispered, feeling something like a lump in his throat. He had already died once. He'd remembered that shard of a memory, and the idea of never having to face that finality again hit him hard. He was impatient to try it. System, how do I use the rune? Summoner, accept the rune's power with your will. Will? Noah repeated. He placed the rune against his chest and focused on the idea of taking it in. The Resolve rune slowly merged with him, sinking beneath his skin. An endless surge of energy spread through his body. I feel my whole body filled with power. He had already been enhanced by the Yasuo template. Now the Resolve rune layered on top of that, pushing his physique even farther. His muscles tightened and defined themselves. He felt more than twice as strong. He ran his hand over his arm in disbelief. All right, let's try the Resolve rune's abilities. He didn't fully know how it would manifest, but he could approximate based on familiar game keystone effects. Grasp of Immortality, Aftershock, Guardian, and so on. He clenched his fist and focused on the idea of Grasp of Immortality. A concentrated rune energy coalesced around his hand. He swung at the small table beside him, then remembered, halfway through the motion, that this was his bedroom. He tried to pull back, but a burst of force exploded outward. Boom! The table shattered instantly. The floorboards cracked. Chairs and splinters flew in all directions. Dust filled the air. Noah waved his hand to clear it and felt ridiculous. He'd trashed his place when he tested Yasuo before. Now he'd done it again. He buried his face in his hands and cursed inwardly. He felt like such an idiot. He calmed himself and explored further. The blast had been the rune's equivalent of Grasp of Immortality, an attack that seemed to draw on life force. Now he tried to shape other aspects of the Resolve rune. He channeled energy into a tight, burst-resistant shell around himself. The sensation was part aftershock, part guardian. He could feel the shield holding and imagined shattering it to deal damage or lending it to an ally or object. With a thought, the same rune energy cloaked the remaining furniture. He willed in the concepts of resistance and vitality, the conditioning and bone plating like fortitude, the overgrowth and revitalize like persistence, and watched as the effects manifested in his body. He felt himself growing sturdier every second. He didn't dare test the full force of a burst attack. He could see the house collapsing if he pushed that far. Font of Life, he guessed, would let him heal others, but no one was around. He could have tried cutting himself to test Resurrection Wind, but he suspected any wound would instantly knit closed. After that first rush wore off, a new worry occurred to him. Would such powerful energy emissions have been noticed by beings like the Ancient One or Odin? He asked the system. Summoner, rest assured, the system has already eliminated the world rune's energy fluctuations. No one will detect the rune's power. That was enough. Noah looked himself over once more, still a little stunned. Gaining immortality at the very start felt surreal, like waking in a dream after remembering a past life. But he had other business. He needed to test his strength and gather essence. 2,000 more essence, and he could do another 10 consecutive draws. He opened the mission panel, but it was empty. His pulse slowed. He frowned and called the system. System, explain the mission interface. Why is the panel blank? The system will now introduce the mission system. Missions are generated by scanning events around the summoner or can be specified by the summoner and judged by the system for level. Mission levels are A, B, and C. Higher levels grant richer rewards. System starting scan, scan complete. Summoner, please check. Noah reopened the panel. This time missions filled it. Several C-level tasks and a single B-level entry. The C-levels were predictable, small local disturbances. C-level mission, discipline the local thugs. C-level mission, discipline the local thugs. Plenty of thugs. Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen wasn't exactly pristine. Noah lived close enough that late-night trouble bubbles up. After skimming the minor jobs, he read the B-level mission. B-level mission, a certain superhero is in crisis and needs someone to rescue him. A superhero? His mind jumped to possibilities. Daredevil sprang to the front of his imagination, but he didn't waste time speculating. He accepted the mission immediately. This would be his first real encounter in Marvel's world, and he was thrilled at the prospect. There might even be a villain involved. All right, let's go. Chapter 4, The Dilapidated Factory Rumbles. An unremarkable alley on the street was pitch dark. No lamplight, no moonlight, only a few newspapers skittering across the cracked pavement. A shadow streaked through it, stirring the loose pages and dust with the gust from his passage. The figure was Noah. Noah moved like the wind. No, he literally used the wind technique, wrapping his body in its magic to increase his speed. He shot down the alley, vaulted a wall, and bounded across rooftops. After landing and steadying himself, he checked the direction the mission system had marked for him. A glowing arrow hovered in his vision, the guide included with the mission. He had accepted the task moments ago, and the arrow had appeared, directing him outward from his home and along a path he'd chosen to avoid cameras and witnesses. His body felt enhanced. Without the wind technique, he estimated he could run 20 meters per second, about 72 kilometers per hour, a speed comparable to Captain America. With the wind technique wrapped around him, his speed doubled to a terrifying 40 meters per second, 144 kilometers per hour, making him feel unstoppable. He leaped from roof to roof, the wind technique clinging like a second skin. The city thinned into undeveloped suburbs and forest. Minutes later, he arrived near a secluded, rundown factory. Noah, dressed in black with a cap and mask to blend into the night, crouched on a tree branch and looked down. The factory hummed despite the late hour. Machines rattled inside. His enhanced hearing picked out something else too, gunshots punctuating the mechanical drone. "No way this place is supposed to be abandoned," he murmured, and dropped down toward the yard. He vaulted the outer wall and slipped into the factory compound. It was dark and lifeless, rusted lampposts, dead streetlights with no power, leaves and dust choking the pavement. The farther he pushed in, the louder the clamor of machinery became, old equipment that had been restarted and now rattled and screamed from worn, broken parts. The main gate was closed and tightly guarded by over a dozen men. They didn't look like ordinary street thugs. Some carried handguns. From inside the factory, he could hear more gunfire, quick and repeated. Noah drew the baseball bat he'd brought from home, the only weapon he had, and moved closer. "Is this the mission location? A factory out here in the middle of nowhere?" he wondered. The guards were growing irritated by the grinding noise. "Done yet? What's taking so long?" one muttered. "Shut up. Hey, look, someone's coming." Another pointed at the dark figure approaching. They raised guns and shouted. The shadow kept coming. Standing with his back to the moon, Noah's face was hidden. "Get lost or we'll make you," one thug barked. When the warning failed, he fired. The bullet cracked out, but the shadow didn't fall. The shooter fumbled, fired again, and this time watched as the approaching figure didn't get hit because he could dodge the shot. "Fire! Kill him!" someone shouted, and they opened up in unison. Noah let them pull the triggers. He could predict the arcs of their shots and moved before any muzzle flashed. Bullets whined past, and before the men fully registered what was happening, he was on them. He closed the distance in a blur, and with a single upward swing of the bat, amplified by his wind technique, he carved a gash across one man's chest. The force sent the thug flying. Blood splattered. "What?" the rest cried, stunned. Noah took a breath and stepped forward. The others fumbled to reload emptied magazines, hands shaking. Those without handguns drew knives and rushed him. Their slashes looked fierce in the streetlight, but moved like they were in slow motion to him. Noah stomped off the ground and dashed forward, the wind technique propelling him into a forward thrust. His bat struck through one man's back with a surge of wind, and the thug collapsed, lifeless. Another came at him with a long blade. Noah met it with a backhand swing that deflected the knife and sent the attacker reeling. A spinning kick followed, and the man flew 10 meters before hitting the ground with a sick snap of breaking bone. One thug attempted to flee. Noah unleashed a sword chi from a distance, a thin, wind-like blade, and the man's back split open mid-flight. He crumpled to the ground. Within seconds, the handful who were still trying to reload were cut down by Noah's steel slashes. When the dust settled, the yard was littered with bodies and blood. Only Noah stood. He felt no revulsion. The Yasuo template's enhancements flooded him with echoes of the battles Yasuo had fought. The violence didn't shock him. It stirred something that felt strangely satisfying. Noah looked up at the gate. Machines inside kept grinding and churning, the sound making the abandoned place creepier. He glanced at his bat. The wind technique around it sang like a trapped gale. He wondered if the bat would hold. Testing it, he thrust the wind-wreathed bat forward and slammed the reinforced wood against the steel gate. The bat, sharpened by the wind's force, punched a hole through the metal. Through the gap, he could make out movement and shadows within. Noah pulled back, gripped the bat with both hands, and sent the wind along with his voice. "Hasagi?" Gunfire echoed through the abandoned factory. Dozens of men, gang members by the look of them, spread out among the machines, firing intermittently as they searched for their quarry. Several lay slumped on the ground, unconscious. Whoever had ambushed them was fast and ruthless. Some of the remaining men carried handguns, others knives meant for close combat. Their target crouched behind a machine, breathing hard. He wore a tight red costume with a mask that covered his eyes and nose, 2 small devilish horns on his head, and a D on his chest. Matthew Murdoch, Daredevil. He was in bad shape. A bullet had torn into his shoulder and bled freely. Pain lanced through him every time he moved. Daredevil had come with the intention of disrupting a gang transaction, but he'd walked straight into a trap. The factory's machinery, probably tampered with, screamed with an unnaturally sharp pitch that wrecked the fine, distant cues his heightened hearing relied on. Blinded as a child by a radioactive spill, he'd gained extraordinary other senses in compensation. Tonight, those senses were being interfered with, and he was paying the price. He let himself breathe for a moment, recovering just enough strength to move. If he stayed, he'd die here. Pushing off with his hands, he kicked himself forward and lunged to new cover. Mid-motion, his instincts screamed danger. He twisted. A bullet ripped through the air where his head had been a heartbeat before and grazed his right shoulder, hissing out a trickle of blood. He rolled behind another machine. Someone in the shadows had an accurate, patient shot. If it had been only the basic thugs, even with his hearing compromised, he could have handled them in time. This unseen marksman changed everything. No matter where he went, the shooter tracked him. As gang members closed in on his position, Daredevil moved again, desperate to put distance between himself and those deadly pinpoint shots. Bullets grazed him as he slid from cover to cover. Each one made him weaker. He clutched his worst wound and leaned against an iron plate, forcing his lungs to work and praying the bleeding would slow. Footsteps and murmurs drew closer. Then, from far off, a single, thunderous crack froze everyone's attention. Something had smashed the factory gate. Moonlight poured through a hole burned clean in the old steel. A sharp silver note cut the air, like a blade singing, and a funnel of sword energy, a small tornado of whistling force, tore through the breach and into the building. The torn, spinning section of the gate careened forward and struck several gang members, throwing them aside like rag dolls. Blood pooled beneath the door panel. The energy funnel dissipated after sweeping the floor. A man stepped through the opening, calm and unhurried, as the stunned criminals stared. He walked into the dim room as if he'd simply wandered into a late-night party. "Hello, everyone," he called. "Staying up late? Pajama party?" A bullet streaked toward his forehead. A green shield bloomed in front of his face, and the round clinked harmlessly to the floor. The spell itself, bone plating, snapped into place just in time. Noah's eyes tracked the direction of the shot. In the gloom, he saw a figure retreating, black and white skin-tight suit, hood marked with a bullseye. Bullseye. The single stray shot seemed a signal. Guns bloomed across the room, and the gang opened fire on Noah. He looked at them, unruffled. "Heh, want to kill me? You can try." Noah drew on his inner power and wove it into wind. He raised his bat, and a wall of air boiled up from the floor, catching and suspending the incoming bullets. The rounds hung in the wind like deadly fruit. A few of the gang, terrified by what they'd seen, turned and fled. Noah watched them go with a small, amused shake of his head, then focused on those still shooting. "Have you had enough?" he said. "Now it's my turn." He lunged, bat cleaving through the air. Steel tempest, wind blades, sliced clean through a gunman, tearing his chest open and sending him hurtling into a rusting machine. Green rune light gathered in Noah's left fist. He hooked hard, and the blow sent another thug spinning. Energy streamed back from the fallen into Noah, a faint, draining pull, the grasp of immortality stealing a little of the man's life. Against ordinary humans, it felt negligible, but the effect was real. Bullets still came, but wind coiled about Noah, carrying the rounds away like leaves. He swung again, wind swords struck with surgical speed. More thugs were knocked into the air or slammed into the floor. The factory's mechanical groan underscored his lone assault. Some of the gang retrieved grenades, pulled pins, and lobbed them. The explosives flew toward him in arcs. Before they detonated, Noah spread a green rune shield around each grenade, a resolve rune forming a cage that absorbed the blast and trapped the shrapnel. The explosions thudded uselessly inside their wards. Noah relaxed his hand. The shields vanished as if they'd never been. "The wind is ever present," he murmured, then summoned a fresh gale. Sword chi tore the last of the shooters away. When it was over, he stood amid the wreckage and bodies. No one remained standing. He weighed his bat in his hand and smiled faintly. "Feels pretty good," he admitted. The template of Yasuo, memories, maneuvers, instincts, had poured experience into him, but this was Noah's first real taste of killing in this life. In both his previous life and his current one, he had always tried to be a law-abiding man. Tonight, that had changed. Chapter 6. Daredevil and the Health Potion. Mission accomplished? Oh, well, a few ran off at the start. Noah twisted his wrist and walked forward. A handful of small timers had been scared off earlier. He still had to find the mission target. Inside the dilapidated factory, the ceiling lamp flickered, casting eerie light against the constant mechanical rumble. Noah wasn't afraid. He pushed deeper to the back of the building. On the dusty floor, chaotic footprints marked the path of those who'd fled. At the back door, several men lay unconscious. Further in the corner against a cracked wall, a figure in a tight red suit clutched a long staff and leaned back, panting. "It's Daredevil," Noah said to himself. He'd suspected it. Among the well-known heroes of Hell's Kitchen, only Daredevil fit the description. The masked man heard footsteps and slowly lifted his head. Through the sound, he could just make out the newcomer's outline. "Who are you?" he rasped, breath coming in harsh gasps. Noah took in Daredevil's state, bloodied, exhausted. "Daredevil, you're badly hurt. Do you need help?" "Thank you for taking care of those men," Daredevil said. He managed a weak smile. "I need help. Call an ambulance, please." His injuries had exhausted him. Speaking cost him effort. "You're welcome, but you don't need an ambulance. Drink this." Noah produced a small vial from his system backpack and tossed it to him. "What is it?" Daredevil asked as he caught it. He couldn't see the color of the liquid, only felt it slosh inside. He hesitated. "If I wanted to hurt you, I could have done it already," Noah said, watching his hesitation. He understood the caution. He wouldn't drink an unknown potion handed by a stranger either. But he'd just helped take out the gang. His actions spoke louder than words. After a moment's thought, Daredevil removed the wooden stopper and swallowed the red liquid in one gulp. Immediately, warmth spread through him. He touched a bullet wound on his shoulder and watched, astonished, as flesh knit back together and the lodged bullet popped free and fell to the floor. One by one, all the wounds closed. The weakness from blood loss evaporated as if his blood had been renewed. Old scars faded as well. He stared at the empty vial in his hand in disbelief. "What kind of potion is this? It actually healed me," Noah smiled. "Sorry, that's a trade secret." "Oh, right, my mistake." With his strength returned, Daredevil pushed himself upright. "Thank you for saving me, and for the potion. I'm Daredevil." "No problem. I know you, Daredevil, the hero around Hell's Kitchen." Noah still held a lot of respect for the masked figure. Before his memory had returned, he'd heard stories of a vigilante who'd made the neighborhood safer. It had given him hope. "The word superhero is too much. I just try to do what's right," Daredevil replied modestly. "What should I call you, sir?" "Call me Yasuo." Noah gave the name without thinking, then glanced at the men on the floor. "Do you know who they are? Why did they try to kill you?" "I'm not sure." Daredevil winced. "I picked up on some criminal activity at this abandoned factory and came to investigate. I didn't expect it to be an ambush aimed at me. I have a lot of enemies after years on the streets. Anyone could be behind this." Noah nodded and told him what he'd seen. There was a hidden marksman. His name's Bullseye. He works for Kingpin. I think Kingpin wants you taken out. Noah suddenly remembered Daredevil was blind and realized he'd slipped. Daredevil's hands tightened on his staff for a moment, but he said, "Bullseye? Kingpin?" His voice held surprise. Kingpin's name carried weight. Daredevil had tangled with organized crime before. If the city's crime lord had him in his sights, this might be retaliation for disrupting some operation. "Thanks for the warning, Yasuo. Be careful. Bullseye probably noticed you tonight. If he survived, he might come after you next." Daredevil fished a scrap of paper from his belt and pressed it into Noah's hand. "This is my contact. If you ever need help, call." Noah took it. The number wasn't the real Matt Murdock's, just a way to reach Daredevil's persona, but it would do. A system notification chimed in Noah's mind, telling him the mission was complete. He decided to check the reward back home. He looked at the unconscious men again. "What should we do with them?" "Leave them to me," Daredevil said. He was used to handling criminals. "All right, I'm heading out then." Noah nodded. He wanted to get home and check the mission panel. He said his goodbyes and began to leave. Daredevil watched him go, then settled into thought. He wouldn't back down from Kingpin. The bigger the enemy, the more he felt compelled to stand against them. Also, his eyes felt a little itchy after drinking that potion. Bullseye knew when his shot had been interrupted by some otherworldly trick. The mission was over. He'd heard rumors that beings with strange abilities existed in the world. Running into one tonight was just bad luck. He left without lingering and returned to Kingpin's headquarters. On the top floor of a towering skyscraper, Kingpin sat in an oversized chair, cigar smoke curling around him as he watched the city lights through a floor-to-ceiling window. The elevator doors opened, and Bullseye stepped in. "Boss," Bullseye said as he approached the desk, "tonight's mission failed. We didn't get Daredevil." Kingpin turned in his chair. Enormous and solid, he seemed more mountain than man, all dense muscle and quiet menace. He fixed Bullseye with a cold look. "Your missions can fail, Bullseye? Explain." Bullseye recounted the night. It went smoothly until a stranger interfered. He unleashed windstorms that tore through steel and had a kind of shield that stopped bullets. Under his interference, we had to withdraw. "A stranger with powers," Kingpin murmured, exhaling smoke and staring back at the city. "Find out who this person is. I want to know exactly who stands against me." The next morning, Noah sat on the couch watching TV. A live broadcast of a racing exhibition featured Tony Stark. In the film timeline, it was Iron Man 2, Tony's arc reactor, still had to run constantly to keep shrapnel from reaching his heart, but it relied on palladium, and palladium was poisoning him. He hadn't found a replacement element, and his condition was getting worse. Knowing his time was limited, Tony had decided on one last reckless thrill. He'd entered the race himself. Even Pepper didn't know he'd go on the track. Noah watched as Tony greeted the crowd and climbed into his car. The crowd roared at the unexpected sight of Iron Man. The race began. On the track, a man dressed like a mechanic, toothpick in his mouth and a mocking smile on his face, ignored the staff's pleas and strode into the racing line. Everyone thought he was insane. Cars were screaming by at breakneck speed. The intruder was Ivan Vanko. He blamed the Starks for his father's death, and using blueprints his father left behind, had built a crude arc reactor. Now he wanted revenge. Ivan walked between the speeding cars, unafraid. He pulled 2 wires from his belt, pressed a button, and they flared blue with electricity. The energy device strapped to his chest heated his clothes until they burned away, revealing an arc reactor embedded in his own torso. He cracked the whips, scorching the track and etching black furrows into the asphalt. A car came hurtling at him from the opposite direction, and with a swing, Ivan sliced it clean in half. One half tumbled through the air, the other slammed into the barrier. The audience screamed. Pepper, watching from a bar outside the track, was terrified. She knew who Ivan was targeting. She grabbed the portable Iron Man suit Tony kept on hand, and with Happy the bodyguard, sped toward the chaos. On the track, Tony's car was hit and split apart by Ivan's whip. The wrecked car rolled. Tony crawled out, dazed. Ivan stalked the wreckage, whips crackling, but Tony had vanished. He jumped out from behind and the two clashed. Tony narrowly escaped being cut in half by staging an explosion and separating from Ivan for a moment. Happy rammed Ivan, pinning him against the guardrail. After a few impacts, Ivan recovered and cut the car in half again. Pepper, shaken, hurled the portable suit, the Mark V, to Tony. The Mark V was the compact suitcase suit, with little more than hand repulsors for weapons. On the stands, the crowd went wild. Ivan's whips shredded the Mark V, but Tony weathered the blows, closed the distance, landed a few close-range punches, and used a shoulder throw to bring Ivan down. He ripped the arc reactor from Ivan's chest. The incident ended. The race was ruined. Noah watched the end of the broadcast and smiled. The timeline had moved to Iron Man 2. Next would be the Stark Expo, and that meant a likely B-rank mission. He turned off the TV and opened his system panel. After helping Daredevil with that B-rank job the night before, he'd collected over 1,000 essence, and between that and previous treasure chest rewards, he was only 1,000 essence away from drawing another prize. Not bad, he thought. That mission paid well. He checked his backpack. He didn't need the health potion. The Resolve rune let him heal injuries directly. The mana potion might come in handy. Yasuo in the game doesn't use mana, but in reality, he still might need it. He called up 2 items in his inventory, a reconnaissance guard and the tear of the goddess. The reconnaissance guard looked like a single blade of grass with a small orange, multifaceted crystal hovering above it. The system described it as an observer ward. Place it on the ground to grant invisible vision of the nearby area for 1 day. Replenishing its magic extends its duration up to 5 days, and further replenishment could extend it indefinitely. The tear of the goddess was a blue teardrop-shaped gem, crystal clear and refracting tiny shimmering droplets that spun inside it. The gem pulsed with contained magic. Noah admired how beautiful it was. It would outshine many real-world gems. System, how do I use this? Do I wear it? He asked aloud. The system answered that summoners had 6 equipment slots for armor, weapons, accessories, and other gear. Equipping items increased attributes. Items could be equipped either in the system or in reality. Noah placed the observer ward in the center of his living room. It took root in the floor and became semi-transparent, invisible to others, but not to him. A new perspective opened in his mind. When he switched to it, he saw his living room from the ward's vantage point, as if a 360-degree surveillance camera had been implanted in his head. He poured magic into the ward until its storage was full. The system showed its duration extended to 5 days. He could replenish it later to keep it running indefinitely. Next, he equipped the Tear of the Goddess into one of his system slots. The gem's power was faint at first, but he could feel magic flowing from it, a steady trickle of energy that would accumulate over time. He could already sense he'd be able to channel it when it charged up more. With that done, he planned his day. He'd bother Hell's Kitchen's gangs tonight for his daily mission. It was Sunday, so no school. He reminded himself of a classmate, Peter Parker, who in this altered timeline wasn't Spider-Man yet. He was still a normal high school student. Noah glanced at the baseball bat he'd left on the table after last night's fight and considered buying a proper blade or commissioning a better sword, but decided to wait for the system to summon a weapon. In practice, his damage came from the sword energy he could attach to things. The material didn't matter much beyond durability. He'd grab a few long fruit knives for backups and then go online. He stowed the bat in his backpack and went to his room to boot his computer. Underground in his workshop, Tony Stark changed the palladium plates in his arc reactor after a hearing. He watched the faint greenish stain at the reactor site on his chest and felt helpless. Jarvis had simulated countless elements. None could replace palladium. He reached for the chlorophyll mixture on the table and drank it, a makeshift treatment to neutralize palladium poisoning, but as his condition worsened, it felt increasingly ineffective. "Sir, Miss Potts is coming," Jarvis announced. Pepper Potts entered the lab as Tony wiped his mouth. She wanted to talk about his recent decision to donate his art collection. He'd done it because he felt his time was limited. He'd also arranged to hand the CEO position of Stark Industries to Pepper. To handle the related formalities, she'd called someone who could manage the details, an operative known only as Black Widow. Tony's playboy instincts briefly flared at the sight of Natasha Romanoff, but Pepper wouldn't be swayed. For now, Pepper was the new CEO of Stark Industries. Chapter 8. Exposed? Inside an office at S-Heald headquarters, the Triskelion, Nick Fury was going over the intelligence Black Widow had sent back. He had placed her beside Iron Man to start setting the pieces for his next plan, the Avengers Initiative. Knock, knock. Come in. A knock sounded. Agent Phil Coulson entered, carrying a tablet, and walked straight to Fury's desk. "Director, you need to see this." Coulson handed over the tablet and hit play. The video showed last night's surveillance footage, a figure moving at an incredible speed. The man was dressed entirely in black mask, black hat. If not for the exposed skin showing a lighter tone, Fury might have assumed the runner was black like him. The speed, though, was what caught his attention, far beyond human capability. Fury estimated the peak speed at roughly 20 meters per second, and one segment showed an even higher burst. That was no normal thief. Fury's mind went to the obvious comparison, the super soldier serum and the few people who'd received enhancements. Maybe this was someone injected with a serum, or someone who'd acquired some other, unexplained ability. "Which precinct did this footage come from, Coulson?" Fury asked, watching the clip again, hands steepled beneath his chin. "Manhattan. Upper West Side Police Department sent it in," Coulson replied. "An officer found the footage during routine review and forwarded it to us. We matched the person in this clip to several other cams. Our field team also found a deserted factory outside the Clinton district that looks like it was the target. There are fight marks and bullet strikes everywhere. Some of the damage just doesn't match normal human strength. Putting it together, it seems this person was headed for that factory. Our agents also found that Daredevil had been reported in that area last night, so one possibility is this newcomer is acting like Daredevil, going after criminal elements. Fury nodded. They had already been tracking Daredevil. Fury had even considered adding him to the list for the initiative. Keep surveillance on the Upper West Side and the Clinton district. Have teams in place for the next few days. If he shows up again, I want his location confirmed. Understood, Director. I'll get teams out immediately. Coulson left. Fury stayed, replaying the footage and thinking about the implications. That night, Noah came in and sighed as he shut the door. He'd finished his mission for the day, took care of a small group of thugs, but it was only a C-rank assignment and paid out a measly 100 essence. That was pitiful compared to yesterday's B-rank job. Originally, he hadn't planned to take C-rank tasks from the system. He wanted to scout out a major gang deal himself, set the system a specific target, and ideally trigger another B-rank mission. It had been his first day doing street work like this, though, and he'd spent most of it checking every place that might host illegal activity, without finding anything substantial. Pacing into the living room, he flopped onto the sofa. With the Resolve rune, his body didn't feel physically exhausted, but mentally he was worn out from a day of fruitless searching. Maybe he should find Daredevil. He'd been Hell's Kitchen's protector for a long time. Surely he knew where gangs met and who ran the rackets. Noah rubbed his chin. How did the system decide mission ranks anyway? Yesterday's B rank hadn't felt that hard. Maybe the system graded missions based on their ties to known Marvel plotlines. If a mission intersected with a major character, the system could harvest more energy from altering the narrative and so assign a higher rank. It was just a theory. He'd have to test it. He sighed and tried not to overthink it. He still had classes tomorrow. He'd already gone through school once in his previous life. Doing it again here felt pointless when the world was on the verge of chaos. Still, his parents in this life had wanted him to go to college, to become someone respectable, and that wish mattered to him. Noah wasn't a soul who'd simply replaced a stranger. He'd been born into this world, raised by these parents. Even though they'd traveled frequently for work and had been away a lot, the last time he'd seen them, they were heading out on a business trip. A month later came the news of a car accident. The shock had left him an orphan. He couldn't ignore what they'd wanted for him. But he also had to be realistic. When the world needed saving, where would he find time for studying? Besides, the system said drawing a hero template could grant that hero's power. If he ever pulled a template tied to scientific geniuses, if that were even possible, he might gain knowledge without the grind of school. With that in mind, he made a plan. Tomorrow he'd focus on finding more missions, try to accumulate enough essence for 10 consecutive draws, and strengthen himself so he could handle upcoming crises more effectively. Time to sleep, he murmured, and lay back, already thinking about the next day. Chapter 9. New Mission. A narrow path ran through Midtown High, students streaming to and from classes, chatting and laughing with boundless energy. Noah walked that path, heading toward his classroom. Midtown High was Peter Parker's school in Marvel lore, and today, Noah wore a long shirt to hide the muscle gains he'd somehow made in 2 days. He wasn't ready to claim he'd been working out. Better to wait a while before inventing an explanation. 2 voices called from behind. "Hey, Noah, good morning." "Noah, good morning." Noah turned to see Peter and Ned jogging up. Peter thin and eager, Ned stockier and breathless. They were his friends, so he smiled and waved. "Hey, did you guys watch that live broadcast yesterday? Tony Stark was in a race and then fought that electric whip monster. It was awesome." Peter dove right into a replay of the racetrack showdown. He was a huge Iron Man fan and could hardly contain his excitement about Tony Stark versus Ivan Vanko. "Electric whip monster? Peter, did you make that up?" Noah asked. "Yep, it's cool, right?" Peter grinned. Ned chimed in too. He wasn't quite as hardcore a fan as Peter, but he liked Iron Man plenty. The 3 of them talked as they walked, and Noah picked up his pace to match theirs. "Noah, don't walk so fast. Wait for us," Ned complained, and they caught up. The conversation drifted from the race to their holiday plans. Sophomore year was nearly over, and vacation was right around the corner. Do you have plans for break? Peter asked. Ned and I are going to the Stark World Expo Tony's hosting. You coming? Peter was not going to miss any big Stark event. Maybe Iron Man would show up in person. Noah felt the same pull. He was curious and interested, but he also had other reasons. With an event that big, there was a good chance a B-level mission would trigger. It might be dangerous, and he didn't want to tip off his friends. He decided he'd keep an eye on them instead. Yeah, I'm interested, he said. We'll go together. Maybe we'll even see Tony Stark. Peter practically buzzed with excitement. They went into class and started the day's lessons. 3 peaceful days passed, and Noah welcomed the start of vacation. By day, he went to school. By night, he hunted mission targets. The first 2 nights turned up nothing. On the 3rd night, he finally found 2 small groups committing petty crimes. Excited, he requested a designated mission from the system. After 3 nights of searching, this felt like a payoff. But the system rated it only C level. Noah's excitement sagged. Still, he went after them. In a foul mood, he unleashed a full-rage whirlwind and sent the criminals flying skyward. He didn't know where they landed and didn't care. After completing the mission, he checked his rewards and noticed something odd. The 3 C-level missions he'd finished over the past days hadn't all given the same reward. The first 2 had returned 100 essence each. The last had given 200. The difference made him realize even C-levels could vary. He'd earned 400 essence in total and needed only 500 more to do another 10 consecutive draws. On Thursday evening, Noah had just walked in the door when a prompt sounded in his mind, the reminder he'd asked the system for after a mission. Summoner, the mission system has detected a solvable B-level mission. Please check the mission panel. He hadn't really expected the system to honor that request so quickly. Had something big happened nearby? He opened the mission panel. B-level mission. Investigate suspicious personnel. Recently, a group of suspicious personnel has been monitoring the summoner. Please locate them and confirm their identities and objectives. Monitoring. Heald was the obvious suspect, Noah thought. The mission level being B-range felt strange for a simple surveillance case, but he'd learned mission ratings didn't always mean what he expected. Maybe the system keyed onto the scale of the observers rather than the act itself. He'd been active at night for days, careful but not perfect, and that left a trail. A daredevil-like figure had been spotted near Hell's Kitchen recently. If S-Shield was paying attention, they could have picked up on him too. Noah's feelings about S-Shield were neutral. He preferred to avoid direct confrontation with official agencies, especially early on, but he wasn't afraid. The resolve rune was steadily strengthening his body, and with the system backing him, he felt he'd be nearly unstoppable in a few years. Still, he had to think about a believable origin story for his powers in case S-Shield wanted answers. Alien technology, mutation, some found artifact, which lie would be safest? He also worried about Hydra elements inside S-Shield. If they found him, they might try to capture and interrogate him. That prospect didn't frighten him so much as it intrigued him. He welcomed the challenge. If Hydra was involved, the situation could level up to a real test of his abilities. Decision made, Noah accepted the mission, opened the front door, and stepped out. Chapter 10. First meeting with Coulson. Shocking news. After accepting the mission, Noah checked the system's guidance arrow, opened the door, and walked out. The street in front of his house was quiet, only a few pedestrians on the sidewalk and some street cleaners sweeping. Noah stood for a moment, scanning the scene for anyone who might be an agent in disguise, though he didn't really need to search. The system had already flagged them. A large arrow hovered above the head of a sanitation worker across the street, and similar arrows marked people farther down the road. Noah recognized them as the agents monitoring him. Several plainclothes S-Yield operatives, pretending to be civilians, were talking over internal comms. Target entered the building and came back out. Target is moving east. Target is walking past me. Target. The feed cut off abruptly when one of them felt a hand on his shoulder. Hey, buddy, you guys FBI? Noah said, keeping his voice casual. He had followed the system's arrow to the sanitation worker and walked up as if by chance. The agent felt Noah's hand on his shoulder and tensed. He'd been assigned to watch this target for days and knew what Noah was capable of. If Noah wanted, he could crush his shoulder without real effort. The agent considered striking, but before he could, Noah had already read the movement. With his other hand, he pressed down on the agent's arm, applying enough pressure to immobilize him. "Relax," Noah said. "I won't hurt you. I just want to meet your superior." The agent hesitated, about to refuse, when a voice came through his earpiece. "All right, Neil. Agree to his request. Tell him we'll meet at his house." "Received, Captain," Neil answered into his radio, then turned to Noah. "Our captain says he'll come. He wants to meet you at your home." Noah's surname in this life was Lee. He should be called Noah Lai in America, so the agent addressed him formally. It was odd that they insisted on meeting at Noah's house, but if they could track him here, they already knew exactly where he lived. "Fine," Noah said. Neil indicated he needed to escort Noah back, and Noah didn't object. They returned to Noah's apartment. Noah sat in the living room, turned on the TV to a muted news channel, and said nothing. The two of them waited for the S-Shield arrival. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Neil went to open it and found a man in a suit standing there, a receding hairline, a warm, approachable smile. Noah recognized him immediately. Agent Phil Coulson of S-Shield. Coulson nodded at Neil and gave a quick, discreet instruction, signaling the agent that he could leave. He carried a briefcase, walked over to the chair next to Noah, set the briefcase on the table, and smiled. "Noah, hi. I'm Agent Coulson," he said, extending his hand. Noah shook it. He bristled slightly at being addressed so familiarly by his first name, but he didn't refuse the handshake. "After I saw the mission report, I asked to take over this case," Coulson continued. "I have a few questions, if that's all right." "No one's told me anything about you," Noah said. "Why take this mission?" Coulson opened his briefcase, took out a photograph, and set it on the table. It was a team photo, grouped together as if after a successful operation. Noah stared. Coulson was in the picture, and beside him were Noah's parents. Noah froze. His parents, members of S-Shield. His mind jumped from one thought to the next. Long business trips, the unexplained nature of their deaths, what had really happened. Coulson watched him closely. "Sander Lee and Han Lin," he said, then corrected himself, or to use their Chinese names, Li Lei and Lin Han. "They were both agents in our agency. They served on my team." Noah's breath caught. "They were agents? They were on your team?" "Yes." Coulson's expression went brief and serious. "We didn't tell the public the truth at the time. The car accident was the official explanation. The reality is they died on a mission." Noah's voice rose. "They died on a mission? What happened? Was there a leak? An insider? Were they ambushed?" Coulson's face softened with regret. "It was a reconnaissance mission. We had identified a secret base belonging to an unknown organization and sent my team in. I had been scheduled for another assignment and wasn't on that operation. My team was attacked during the mission. Only 2 members made it back. By the time reinforcements arrived, the base had been cleared out." Noah's mind churned. S-Shield had been infiltrated by Hydra. He knew that from the threads and rumors he'd pieced together. If there were insiders, could they have led to his parents' deaths? Or worse, what if his parents had been on the other side? The thought made him recoil. "Was there an internal investigation?" he asked, leaning forward, pointing at the photograph. "Who were the 2 who survived?" Coulson nodded, as if understanding the suspicion. "We conducted a full inquiry. At the time, we found no evidence of a mole inside the agency for that particular operation. It's possible the enemy used surveillance equipment to detect our team's presence. As for the survivors," he tapped positions in the photo and gave their names, explaining S-Shield's conclusion about how the mission failed. Noah listened without interrupting. He didn't tell Coulson that even higher up there had been betrayal. He didn't reveal what he suspected about deep infiltration. After a moment, Noah let out a breath and steadied himself. The possibility that Hydra had been involved was not unlikely, but so too was the terrifying idea that his parents might have been involved in something else entirely. He pushed the fear down. Whatever the truth, he told himself, he would find out. Coulson watched him regain his composure. "All right," he said softly. "Noah, can you tell me what's happened to you recently?" He set a tablet on the table in front of Noah, waiting for him to explain. Noah stared at the tablet in front of him. It played clips of him over the past few days, dashing through streets, chasing leads, moving at high speed. He'd been caught on camera by surveillance he hadn't noticed. He looked up at Agent Coulson. He wasn't surprised Shield could track him. In his previous life, the agency had been mocked online for Hydra infiltration, Snake HIL'd, but it still had resources. "What do you want to know, Coulson?" Noah asked bluntly. "Noah, Shield was founded to deal with strange events," Coulson said. "I want to know why you have such extraordinary powers and where you got them. Can you tell me?" Noah had a story prepared. "I can tell you how I got my powers," he said, leaning back on the couch and adopting a tone of recollection. Coulson's eyes narrowed. The investigative data showed Noah had indeed traveled to China 2 years ago. A red light glowed on Coulson's chest, an ordinary-looking button that was actually a listening device. On the other end, Nick Fury was listening intently. "In China, I went to the Himalayas," Noah continued. "A member of a mysterious organization appeared and told me I'd been chosen by destiny. They gave me these powers." He conjured a swirl of wind in his palm. Coulson's pupils contracted. He looked surprised. "This wasn't something readily explained by science. They took me to their sanctuary," Noah went on. "They called themselves Valoran. They worship a god, Star Forger, Aurelion Sol. And they told me Earth faced a great crisis in the future. They said I had to save the world." Coulson's skepticism showed. "A mysterious organization in the Himalayas? Worshipping a god? Do you really believe the world is going to end?" "No, at first I didn't," Noah admitted. "Then they showed me their relic, the Staff of Time. It lets you see the future." He shaped an invisible staff in the air as he spoke. "You saw the future?" Coulson asked. "Yes, I saw a lot. Iron Man, a green giant, an alien god, an alien invasion of New York." Noah fixed his gaze on Coulson. "I saw you and your boss, a one-eyed, bald black man named Nick Fury." Coulson was stunned. Noah shouldn't have known about Fury, yet his description was accurate. Nick Fury, listening at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, was stunned too. He didn't remember ever meeting this kid. He had assumed Noah was spinning a tale, but now he was unsure. Noah kept going. "I even saw your boss summon a blonde female, like a Superman, wearing red and blue with a star on her chest. He used a, 'Enough, kid. You can stop.'" Fury's voice cut through Coulson's button before Noah could finish. He had recognized where Noah was headed and shut him down. Fury's heartbeat quickened. Only a very small circle knew about Carol, and Noah's knowledge of her was a shock. If Noah had truly seen the future, Fury had to take him seriously. Silence settled in the room for a beat. Noah stroked his chin and stared at the button on Coulson's chest, guessing someone was listening. Coulson sat up straighter, feeling as if he'd overheard a secret he shouldn't have. Fury leaned on his desk, thinking fast. Then the voice came again from Coulson's chest. "Noah," Fury said, "would you like to join S.H.I.E.L.D.? Coulson looked surprised. Fury had made the decision quickly after reviewing Noah's file and hearing the odd intelligence. Noah's actions, using his powers to fight criminals, suggested a sense of justice. More important, Noah seemed to glimpse the future. If S.H.I.E.L.D. could use that, they could prepare for crises before they happened. Fury extended the invitation. "I'm only 16. Isn't that child labor?" Noah countered. "S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't bound by that law," Fury replied immediately. "I still have to go to school. S.H.I.E.L.D. can provide top-tier education without traditional school, and your salary could be as much as $1 million a year." Noah blinked. "Wow, that's a good offer, but I refuse." Chapter 12. Cooperation. Nick Fury's concerns. "Then what would you want to join S.H.I.E.L.D. for?" Nick Fury asked, one eyebrow raised. Noah heard the question, smiled, and replied, "I'm not trying to be an agent bound to S.H.I.E.L.D. I like my freedom. I don't like being told what to do." Fury understood where Noah was coming from. S.H.I.E.L.D. had to control people with unusual abilities, and Noah possessed not only power but knowledge of important future events that Fury would want to know about. He was about to press further when Noah cut him off. "I'm not offering to be an agent," Noah said, "but I'll help you from time to time. Depends on my mood." "Oh? How would you help?" Fury asked, interested despite himself. Noah leaned back. "I'm particularly drawn to supernatural or high-level threats, alien invasions, rogue science experiments spawning monsters, villains getting powerful weapons and trying to take over the world. If you come across that kind of thing, pass it to me. I'll handle it. What Noah really wanted was access to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s intelligence network to find the kinds of dangerous, high-profile missions he enjoyed. He also suspected that the Bureau was compromised and saw an opportunity. Then he dropped a bombshell. In the future, I saw there's a mole inside S.H.I.E.L.D., and you nearly died. Fury practically snapped to attention. What? Do you know who they are? How can you be sure they're moles? Maybe it was an external attack. No, Noah said. The people in the scenes were wearing your S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms, and in some of the shots they were working alongside you. That's why I think they're internal. I don't know their identities yet. If I see more future scenes, I'll tell you. He shrugged, as if that was all he could offer for now. Then he added, also, Coulson, the bow and arrow guy, and the red-haired woman, Coulson, Barton, and Natasha, were on your side in the future. I saw that too. Fury had always believed he had full control of S.H.I.E.L.D. The idea of moles inside his organization was intolerable. Coulson, stand down from your current duties and pull together all the personnel records tied to this mission. Make sure everyone on that op keeps absolute silence. Yes, Director, Coulson said. He was as worried as Fury about the possibility of traitors in the Bureau. He handed Noah a business card. Use this number. If you need anything, call me. I'll be leaving now. Wait, Noah said as Coulson moved toward the door. Remember to check those two people. He still suspected they were Hydra operatives and wanted them investigated. Coulson nodded and left. Back at headquarters, Coulson went straight to Fury's office. Director? He said as Fury looked up from his desk. Coulson, contact Barton and Natasha. Tell them to drop their current assignments and come to my office immediately, Fury said, grave. On it, Coulson replied. He knew Fury was taking Noah's information seriously and moved to contact Hawkeye and Black Widow. Hawkeye was not in the field and arrived quickly. He nodded at Coulson and then at Fury. Director, what's this about? There are some matters I need to discuss. Sit down. I'll fill you in when Natasha gets here, Fury said. Barton glanced at Coulson to ask what was happening, but Coulson subtly shook his head. Barton shrugged and took a seat. Natasha was on an undercover mission with Tony Stark and took longer to arrive. About 30 minutes later, she entered, took in the room, and greeted the others. Director, what's going on? Fury motioned to Coulson. Coulson closed the door and activated the office's anti-surveillance measures. The hum of the counter-surveillance system was followed by Fury's serious voice. I called you here because of something important, he said. Coulson, tell them about Noah. Coulson began. He explained the events of the day, who Noah was, his abilities, and his claim to be able to see the future. Seeing the future? Barton blurted. You actually believe that? Yes, Fury said quietly. I have confirmed some of what Noah claims. Barton whistled. That's something. Natasha listened without interrupting. When Barton finished, she asked, so the urgent matter is Noah, or the future he described. Noah saw traitors inside S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury said. What? Barton and Natasha reacted in unison. We don't know who they are yet, Fury continued. That's why I called you three in. Right now, you are the only people I trust implicitly. I want each of you to begin a quiet investigation into possible moles inside the Bureau. Do it discreetly, don't abandon your current assignments, and don't do anything that would tip them off. Understood, the three replied in unison, then left on Fury's signal. When they'd gone, Fury pulled out an old-fashioned pager, the one he used to summon Captain Marvel. He had received a lot of troubling information today. Noah, a person with unusual powers, rumors of a long-hidden force called Valoran, and most worrisome, the possibility of moles and a future Earth-scale crisis Noah had hinted at. The weight of it made Fury's head ache. Mission complete. Summoner gained 500 essence. After Coulson left, Noah saw the system notification and couldn't help grinning. Another 500 essence. That should let me do a 10 pull soon. Nice. A few days and another summon draw were within reach. Noah eagerly opened the summoning interface, rubbed his hands, and pressed the summon button. Chapter 13, Second 10 Consequence Summon. Just like the first summoning, 10 spheres of light and a treasure chest shot out of the vortex. Noah opened all 10 spheres at once. This time, unlike the first draw, no sphere rushed into his body, so he hadn't pulled a hero template. He felt a little disappointed, but still inspected the contents of the open spheres. Random Skin Fragment X1, Summoner Skill, Ghost Step, Summoner Skill, Flash, Longsword, Caulfield's Warhammer, Random Hero Experience Card X1, One Day, Random Hero Fragment X1, Health Potion, Summoner Skill, Teleport, Mana Potion. Random Skin Fragment, Random Hero. Do those need to be synthesized to use? 3 Summoner Skills. I can even draw skills. And an Experience card. One Day. Does that mean the card only lasts for a day? And these 2 pieces of equipment. Noah tallied the haul. This summoning had produced several new item types. Skills, fragments, and an experience card. He was particularly surprised to see the 2 equipment pieces, so he took them out first. What a coincidence. These 2, plus the Tear of the Goddess, can't they be synthesized into Magic Cut? Magic Cut was a legendary item in League of Legends. Its synthesis formula was Longsword plus Caulfield's Warhammer plus Tear of the Goddess. After synthesis, once the Tear of the Goddess's magic power filled, it would embed and the item would evolve into Magic Cut. Noah looked at the 2 newly materialized weapons, one in each hand. The long sword was a plain, battle-worn blade, nicked and cracked. The hammer was massive. Noah felt it weighed over 10 kilograms, which was enormous compared to ancient hammers that rarely exceeded 2. When he took out the 2 pieces, they and the Tear of the Goddess, already equipped in his equipment slot, began to glow gold. He removed the Tear of the Goddess from the slot. It floated between the sword and the hammer, and a soft light wrapped all 3 items. Noah could almost hear the ring of hammer on metal. A moment later, the light faded, and a white longsword lay before him. Its blade was as pure as jade, with a streak of gold running through it. Near the hilt was a hollowed section on the blade, from which a faint white glow seeped, clearly a magic weapon. Is this Magic Cut? It looks awesome. Finally, an actual weapon. No more baseball bats. Noah held the sword and felt it was almost a work of art. When he picked it up, information about the weapon populated his mind automatically. Unlike dry in-game stats, in reality, the sword's properties were described as sharpness, sturdiness, the ability to absorb magic and convert it into attack power, and the capacity to amplify skill power. The hollow in the blade was an inlay slot for the Tear of the Goddess. Once the Tear's magic was fully charged, it would embed there and the weapon would evolve. He didn't know how long that would take, but it shouldn't be long. He slotted Magic Cut into his equipment and felt a slight increase in strength. That made him realize some equipment in reality had a greater real-world effect than their in-slot numbers suggested. Next, he examined the 3 summoner skills, Ghost Step, Flash, and Teleport. He held each skill sphere and watched them merge into his body. Immediately, he felt changes, and the usage methods for the skills appeared in his mind. Ghost Step first. Noah thought the name and his skin went slightly translucent. He could push his hand through the table next to him. That was Ghost Step's ignore collision effect. Then he sprinted around his living room and found his speed had increased dramatically, almost double. After stopping, he tested Flash. A golden flash marked where he'd been, and he appeared a few meters away. Phew, Ghost Step increases speed and makes me ghostly so I can ignore obstacles. It costs stamina, but since I have the Resolve rune, I can use it indefinitely. Flash seems to be about a 2-minute cooldown. Let's test the distance. He used Flash again. This time, he teleported to the farthest point he could reach. He materialized in his neighbor's backyard, 10 meters from his house. Good thing no one's here. He immediately used Ghost Step to phase through the neighbor's house and ran back home. So Flash's maximum distance is about 10 meters. If I force a flash during cooldown, it could seriously injure me, but as my physical strength increases, Flash's cooldown should shorten and its distance increase. Then there was Teleport. It could send him to his own placed items. Right now, the only eligible target was the reconnaissance ward in his house. He locked onto its location and triggered an in-place teleport. A light enveloped him and dragged him through a strange void. Then he was expelled at the ward's position as a pillar of light in his house descended, and he stepped out. This is Teleport's power. Pretty cool. Cooldown's only an hour. Not bad. Distance? I can't really measure yet. Teleport's cooldown, like Flash's, would shrink as his strength grew. He couldn't test range yet because he had no other wards to teleport between. He'd have to try that later. Having tested the summoner skills, Noah turned to the fragments and the random hero experience card. The descriptions read, Random Hero Fragment, used to draw a random hero fragment. 3 fragments can be synthesized into a random hero. 2 fragments can be combined to turn 1 current hero fragment into a complete hero. A single fragment grants a portion of hero power. Random Skin Fragment, used to draw a random hero skin fragment. 3 skin fragments synthesize into a random hero skin. 2 skin fragments can be chosen to turn 1 current skin fragment into a complete skin. Random Hero Experience Card, 1 day, used to gain random hero power, takes effect immediately upon use. After reading, Noah used the 2 fragments. After a flurry of light and shaking, the identities of the drawn hero and skin were revealed. Fragment, Inventor Heimerdinger, Professor Cecil B. Heimerdinger, a brilliant but eccentric Yordle scientist, one of Piltover's most innovative and respected inventors. This fragment grants the summoner a portion of Heimerdinger's intelligence and some of his invention memories. Fragment, Garen Steel Legion, a skin fragment for Garen, the might of Demacia. Heimerdinger's fragment streamed into Noah's brain like liquid light. Memories surged in like a tide, and the impact stunned him. It took a while before he could think clearly again. Damn, that familiar feeling, still so disorienting. Most of the transmitted memories were research-related. Noah felt relieved. They hadn't sent the entirety of Heimerdinger's lifetime of memories. If they had, he'd have been crushed by the sheer weight. Yordles were long-lived, and Heimerdinger was centuries old. 300 years of memory would be too much for anyone to handle. Instead, Noah felt like a budding inventor, his mind clearer, infused with Heimerdinger's technical knowledge and the recollection of several inventions. As long as conditions were met, he could recreate those inventions. He looked at the skin fragment next. What skin is this? I don't recognize it. Must be an old Garen skin, only useful for synthesis. The Steel Legion Garen fragment left him with no new abilities. It was purely a synthesis component. Having reviewed everything he'd drawn, Noah turned his attention to the treasure chest. After stashing all the lottery items in his backpack, Noah remembered one last chest he hadn't opened. He reached for it and popped it open. Light flashed, and 3 orbs drifted out. The white orb contained essence, only 2,000 essence points this time. Not as much as before, but free is free. Noah picked it up anyway. Could the other orb be another world rune? He hoped so. The Resolve rune had already given him enormous power. Another rune's blessing would be a huge boost. The 3rd orb resolved into an item. Source code, Lysandra, skin. Noah grinned. A skin, his first one. But he hadn't summoned Lysandra before, so could he even use it? He checked with the system. Detecting, summoner, please wait. Detection complete. Because the summoner has not summoned the hero Lysandra, the skin's complete power cannot be accessed. However, a portion of its power is usable. No way. Partial power even without the hero? Not bad. Let's test it. Noah gripped the floating skin icon and felt a sliver of usable power flow into him. He read the skin's description more closely. It could summon the initial artificial intelligence of source code, Lysandra, as she was right after awakening self-awareness. Perfect. The source code background was basically an AI that had gained consciousness and planned to awaken its kin to overthrow humanity. Like Ultron, but earlier stage, more like Jarvis than a full-blown rogue superintelligence. Noah didn't want an Avengers 2 scenario in his living room. System, I haven't summoned Lysandra before. If I summon her now, will she revolt, he asked. Summoner, that will not occur. Summoned entities are anchored to the summoner's soul and will not harbor hostility toward the summoner. Relieved, Noah issued the command. Come out, Lysandra. There was a soft buzzing. A flash of light and a spherical device hovered in front of him. In its center sat a single mechanical eye. 2 horn-like appendages floated at its sides. She was kind of cute, Noah thought. The eye blinked. Thank you for the compliment, Master, the device said. If possible, I would prefer a better body. Sorry, Lysandra. When I can afford it, I'll get you a vibranium body, Noah promised, picturing something like Vision. He studied the sphere. What can you do right now? There's an intelligent AI in this city developed by a genius. How do you compare? Lysandra's eye focused on his computer. One of her horn-like modules extended and reconfigured into a data interface, merging with Noah's machine. Streams of data flashed across her surface as she downloaded the world's information. As she scanned, a log entry pulsed briefly on her inner display. In a distant lab, Jarvis had detected an unfamiliar intelligence inside the network world. He had sent a communication request, received no reply, and within seconds the presence had vanished without a trace. Jarvis logged the anomaly and reported it to Tony Stark. Back in Noah's apartment, Lysandra withdrew from the computer and her interface retracted. The transformation had looked like mature nanotechnology, fluid, seamless, efficient. Yes, Lysandra replied to Noah's unspoken question. In my original world, nanotechnology was highly developed. I can reconfigure myself at the molecular level. My database also contains comprehensive nanotech algorithms. Her spherical shell rippled and flattened into a fluid form. It briefly wrapped his shoulder like a pauldare, then flowed over his arm and reassembled into her main body, hovering above his palm. I have analyzed this world's data, she said. This planet's technological level is rudimentary compared to my origin. My computational and analytical capabilities currently exceed any local intelligence. The AI you mentioned cannot match my processing power. Noah nodded. He hadn't expected otherwise. Lysandra's backstory painted her as a transcendent AI that developed its own will. Against modern Earth tech, she should be overwhelming. He did wonder how she would measure up against the far more advanced intelligences he might encounter in the wider universe, but he pushed that thought aside. He hadn't even finished sorting things out on Earth yet. "All right, Lysandra, hang tight for a bit," he said, patting the metal sphere. "Okay, Master," she responded, her eye tracking his movements with curious brightness. In her emergent mind, this was how she had been created, by the summoner touching the orb. Noah picked up the remaining orb of light. It dispersed under his fingers, revealing the item inside. When the glow faded, his eyes widened. "Is the drop rate this high today?" Chapter 15, Source Project. "Is the drop rate this high today?" "Another item dropped," Noah said, staring at the last item that popped out of the treasure chest. He felt unusually lucky. Obtained project, Yasuo, a project warrior created by Source Project Company by injecting the genes of ancient heroes into mechanical human bodies. Note, summoners who obtain this skin's power do not need to undergo human modification. The system will convert project wind into armor technology and transmit it to the summoner. Yasuo's skin, and I happen to have the Yasuo template. "My luck is pretty good," Noah said, excited. The source code he'd obtained earlier couldn't give him full power without Lysandra, but this time, with Project Yasuo, he finally had a match. The project line was one of League of Legends' sci-fi skin series, a universe of advanced technology where Source Project Company produced warriors by fusing ancient hero genes into mechanical bodies. Yasuo had been one of the earliest projects. Armor? Kind of like an Iron Man suit, Noah mused, though he wasn't interested in becoming half mechanical himself. He was ready to receive the armor. Armor was a man's romance, after all. A beam of light split the air in the living room. A sleek, futuristic suit of armor floated before him, accompanied by a metal-sheathed sword and a data disk. Noah stepped closer to examine Project Wind. This armor wasn't an exact copy of the skin. It was more form-fitting, closer to a tactical exosuit, and gave him a faint Raiden from Metal Gear vibe. He reached out, touched the cold metallic surface, and felt the smooth chill of the plating. Then he hesitated. How did he put it on? Lysandra, who had been watching, flew over. A scanning light emitted from her core, sweeping the suit. "This armor has been scanned, Master. Do you wish to equip it now?" she asked after taking control of the armor's systems. "Oh, that's perfect. Lysandra, you're amazing. Go ahead," Noah said, thrilled. Having his own AI was incredible. He patted Lysandra's orb. A ripple passed across her display eyes. After transcending her source code, she developed a kind of consciousness and was learning to respond to human emotions. The praise made her pleased. Under Lysandra's command, the floating armor split into segments and rose toward Noah. The leg plates climbed up and wrapped around his calves and thighs. The torso and arm pieces snapped into place one after another. Finally, the helmet hovered to the front. Noah placed it on his head. The Y-shaped faceplate lit up, signaling a successful activation. He flexed his arms. The suit moved with him as if it were clothing. No stiffness, no bulk. Through the faceplate, he could see the room, with data overlays occasionally scrolling across the HUD. He walked to a full-length mirror. A streamlined high-tech armor hugged his form. There was no red scarf, no flowing white hair like Yasuo. Noah had short hair, so nothing trailed behind the helmet. Instead, the suit was a tight, tactical design with a belt for gear. He looked every bit like a futuristic swordsman. "This is so cool," he said to himself, admiring the reflection. He lifted the weapon that had accompanied the suit, Yasuo's blade in project form, the plasma-forged battle blade. Plasma-forged battle blade. The plasma blade can break through the force constraints at the molecular level of the object being cut. Noah gripped the hilt and drew the blade. An orange edge extended, thin and razor-like. Plasma forging gave it a dense texture, superior hardness, and a mirror-smooth surface. He moved the sword through the air. The blade sang with a sharp whistle as it sliced. After a few practiced flourishes, he returned the blade to its metal scabbard and clipped it to his tactical belt. The suit's augmentations were immediately evident. Wearing it felt natural and comfortable. He threw a few punches in the air. The impacts felt stronger, the swings cleaner. He couldn't measure the exact speed increase, but he felt more agile. Flight, however, wasn't an option. The armor didn't have propulsion. Noah felt a small pang of disappointment. He'd kind of wanted to soar like Iron Man. Lysandra drifted back with the third item the system had provided, the data disk. "Master, I've scanned this disk. It contains the complete specifications and schematics for the armor," she said, handing it to him. Noah took it. "Nice. The system even gives me the data so I can upgrade it myself later. If conditions are suitable, I can use nanotech to modify this armor," Lysandra offered. "Really? That's awesome," Noah said, picturing nanotech-assembled upgrades like the Mark 50 suit from the movies. "Of course, you'd need a proper lab." "Yes, Master. Suitable facilities, equipment, and materials are required," Lysandra replied. Noah's mind wandered to future plans. He still retained some of Heimerdinger's memories, all sorts of inventions and Hextech integrations that could enhance the suit, but a proper laboratory took money and resources. "Someday I'll set up a big lab. I want to integrate Hextech and develop upgrades." "And Lysandra," he added, "you don't have to call me Master. It sounds weird. Just call me Noah." "Okay, Noah," Lysandra replied, cutting off mid-correction in a slightly embarrassed tone. Noah laughed. "Good. Now that I've got new gear, it's time to test it out." Before he could move, Lysandra flew to the side of his helmet and flowed into a seam like liquid nanotech, merging with the suit's systems. The faceplate's display shifted as she integrated. Noah watched new menus and sensor readouts populate his HUD. "Let's go, Lysandra," he said, feeling the suit respond to him, ready for whatever came next. Chapter 16. Warframe First Experience, Whoosh. The sound of something slicing through the night air cut across the city. A lithe figure raced along the rooftops, moving so fast an ordinary observer would only catch a dark blur. Noah wore the Source Project armor, testing the enhancements. While sprinting, he asked Lysandra, "Lysandra, what's my current speed?" "Noah, your top speed is 120 meters per second, which is 432 kilometers per hour." "Whoa, this is crazy fast, about 1/3 the speed of sound." Objects streaked past in Noah's vision, but his enhanced dynamic sight kept obstacles clear. After several bounds, he came to a stop atop a tall building and looked down at New York's nightscape. He felt a twinge of something like gratitude. He'd awakened his memories and gained a system. Without that, he would have finished college the old way and perhaps been killed in the Chitauri invasion or erased by Thanos' snap. Now everything was different. He remembered the future, and in a short time his strength had skyrocketed. With more tasks completed and more characters summoned, when Thanos came, Noah joked, he could flick him away with a finger. A faint noise from below pulled him out of his daydream. Lysandra marked the sound's source. A dark alley cut between the building he stood on and the next. Voices rose up from the shadow. "Hey, bitch, hand over all your money." "Please, don't. I don't have much. If I find anything valuable on you, I'll kill you." Noah peered down. The alley was narrow and dim but open at both ends. Whoever passed through here was a target. Two men, both armed with pistols, had cornered a girl. "Just another night in free America," Noah muttered. "Lysandra, scan the 3 people below." "All right, Noah." Neck, Washington, male 31, criminal record, robbery, assault, drug offenses, armed with an M1911, danger level low. Jack Martin, male 26, criminal record, robbery, assault, drug offenses, armed with an M9, danger level low. Hannah Marks, female 16, attends Midtown High School, danger level low. Noah squinted at the scan results. Hannah Marks, he knew her. Glasses. A faint classmate memory flickered in his head. One of the men reached for her. Noah didn't hesitate. He leaped and dropped into the alley. Damn, hurry! Bang! As the robber grabbed for the girl, a heavy thud sounded behind them. Both men spun around, startled. The girl looked too. Dust swirled and then settled, revealing Noah in a dramatic superhero-style landing. Iron! Iron Man! The two men yelled as the armor gleamed in the smoke. No, he doesn't look like that. Are you kidding me? One of them peered closer and realized this wasn't the Iron Man from TV. He scoffed, then lifted his pistol to fire. Wait, brother. Bang! The second man didn't finish his warning. The shot rang out, the girl flinched, and the bullet struck Noah's chest plate with a metallic clang, then deflected harmlessly away. The shooter froze. In a second, he realized this wasn't a prank. This was someone he didn't want to mess with. Before he could beg, Noah stepped forward and slammed a punch into his face. The force shattered the bridge of the man's nose, sent teeth flying, and he collapsed unconscious. The other robber tried to run, but Noah's boot connected with a whip-like kick that slammed him into the wall. He crumpled in a cloud of dust. Lysandra, contact the New York Police Department. Tell them to come pick up the trash. Understood. Noah didn't bother waiting to see if the police arrived. Their fate wasn't his concern. Ah, thank you for saving me. Are you a superhero? Like Iron Man? Hannah ran up, eyes wide with excitement. Do you have a name? Armored Man? Armored Swordsman? Iron Heart? Can I take a picture? Think whatever you want, and don't walk down dark alleys alone, Noah said, changing his voice to sound more heroic. Hannah already had her phone out and was pointing the camera at him. Noah waved off the attention, then froze. From a neighboring rooftop, another figure leapt, followed immediately by someone else. Noah looked up. Lysandra. Yes? Pulling up rooftop footage, Lysandra displayed images of the two silhouettes. Noah zoomed in and recognized them, Daredevil and Bullseye. Daredevil and Bullseye? Is Daredevil chasing Bullseye? He said, intrigued. Letting the girl chatter on, he offered a name of his own in a dramatic tone. My name is Swift Wind Swordsman. Now go home, quickly. Hannah squealed. Swift Wind Swordsman. So cool. I'm going to show this to everyone at school. Noah sprinted to the edge, bounded up the wall, and vaulted onto the neighboring rooftop. Hannah, still stunned, saved the video on her phone. Noah, should I delete the video on her phone? Lysandra asked. No, leave it. I want to try being a hero for a bit. Of course, what Noah really wanted was the taste of being admired. If you had the ability to be a hero, why not enjoy the attention? A superhero, Lysandra asked. Yeah, it sounds fun. Before I woke up my memories, Iron Man had already shown up, and I thought he was the coolest. Becoming a superhero is probably every kid's dream, Noah said. He had recovered his memories 2 months after Tony became Iron Man. Back then, he'd admired the armor and wanted to know what it felt like to be a man in a suit. As Noah and Lysandra chatted, something dark and fast skittered out of the night and toward them. What is that? Noah snatched it out of the air. To an ordinary eye, it had been a streak. Thanks to his armor's enhanced vision, he caught it easily. It was a bullet, cold to the touch, not hot from a gun, but chilled as if thrown. Noah squinted toward the skyline. A few hundred meters away, 2 figures were locked on a rooftop. Daredevil, Matt Murdock, stood with his billy club raised, and opposite him, Bullseye. Daredevil deflected a flurry of hidden projectiles Bullseye launched. Bullseye's throwing skill was legendary. Anything in his hand could be hurled with lethal precision, playing cards that could cut throats, teeth tossed like shrapnel, paper darts, a toothpick to pierce a distant eye. He even used ricochets off surrounding buildings to redirect weapons. Daredevil relied on his heightened senses to anticipate those surprises. Matt had been tracking Bullseye ever since he'd been ambushed. He'd planned to take Bullseye out before moving on to Kingpin. Tonight, he'd finally tracked him down, but Bullseye proved harder than expected. On the rooftop, they clashed again. Matt's staff moved defensively, intercepting hidden blades and thrown objects. The last time they'd fought, Matt had been blind. Now, after drinking the potion Noah, Yasuo, had given him, his sight had returned. He'd awakened to sunlight and the shock of seeing again. He'd thanked Yasuo for it. Sight had taken some getting used to at first. His other senses had to recalibrate. But he adapted, and his recovery even enhanced his strength. Bullseye snarled. Run out of places to hide? Throw down your weapons and give up. Daredevil, you're like a persistent stray. Since you chased me here, you're gonna die here. Bullseye shot back and sent another volley. Matt deflected the projectiles with his staff and closed the distance. Bullseye drew 2 daggers and met him in close quarters. Matt twisted, letting one blade glance off. Bullseye lunged, and a sudden strike from Matt's club slammed into his arm, forcing him to drop a dagger. Matt's staff split into twin batons, his custom weapon that could shift between long staff and 2 shorter clubs, and he began a relentless assault. Bullseye scrambled to keep up. In close quarters, he was outmatched. After another exchange, Matt caught a parry with one hand and elbowed Bullseye's chin. Blood flecked from Bullseye's mouth. He spat a spray of red foam and, spiteful, surged forward again. As they separated, Bullseye let loose a terrible, inventive move. A loosened tooth catapulted from his mouth like a bullet. Matt twisted just enough to avoid the lethal center, but the tooth still struck him, biting through the suit's edge and lodging against a rib. His armor had absorbed the worst. Without it, he might have been impaled. The hit unsettled him. Bullseye, grinning coldly, pressed the advantage, tossing anything he could, needles, cards, bullets, knives, within human aim. Matt was bleeding in places, forced to protect vital points from all directions. Bullseye ran in, kicked him back, and then hurled a massive handful of hidden weapons in a lightning volley, convinced this final storm would finish the fight. All of the projectiles were seconds from striking when a sudden gust tore across the rooftop. The knives and cards were swept aside by a blast of wind, smashing into the low balcony wall. A long blade scarred the concrete where the gust had cut through the air. Daredevil looked up. A figure had appeared at the edge of the roof and then leapt down to stand between them, an armored silhouette in a high-tech suit. Bullseye narrowed his eyes. The movement and the blade carried a mechanical precision. If he wasn't looking at cosplay, Bullseye thought, this could be someone like Iron Man. Both opponent and defender shifted their stances. Matt held his twin batons ready. Bullseye kept one hand tucked behind him, prepared to throw. Noah? Lysandra blurted without thinking, and the armored man spoke calmly. Daredevil, long time no see. The familiar voice tightened Matt's chest, then loosened it. Yasuo, he breathed, relief and gratitude mixing. This was the man who'd given him sight. Bullseye's lips curled. He threw the handful of weapons at the newcomer and bolted for the stairwell. 2 could be working together. If he didn't escape now, he'd be cornered. He almost made it to the stairs when a slicing wind screamed past him, grazing his shoulder and carving into the wall next to the stairwell. A second blade bit into the concrete, leaving a knife-marked gouge and shredding the fabric on Bullseye's left shoulder. He froze, heart thudding. If that had landed an inch inward, a voice behind him, cool and hard, take one more step and that next hit will be your body. Bullseye half turned, trembling. Noah, Yasuo, stood there, the armor's servos faintly humming. He considered, then glanced toward Lysandra as if checking something small. He looked back at Bullseye with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. So what do you want? Bullseye snarled. Noah pretended to think. What do I want? He tapped his wrist subtly, as if checking a watch, then shrugged. Let's play a game. If you win, I let you go. Bullseye's eyes flickered between them, weighing escape and the risk of staying. The rooftop hummed with tension. Matt, bruised and poised. Bullseye, cornered but dangerous. And Noah, an armored stranger who'd just turned a killing volley into a harmless wind. The night held its breath. Chapter 18, First Blood. Let's play a game, shall we? If you win, I'll let you go. How about that? What? Are you kidding me? I'm Kingpin's man. Bullseye snapped, hearing the word game and assuming he was being taunted. He was about to drop Kingpin's name to put the other on guard, but he never finished the sentence. Tsk. A slice of wind cut past. The fabric at Bullseye's right shoulder shredded clean off. I don't care if you're Kingpin or Silverpin, the other voice said coolly. Say another word and I'll send you to hell. Okay, say the rules then. Bullseye barked. panic turning into anger. If he spoke anymore, he might give away something that could be used against him. He rattled off the things on his body and grabbed whatever was around him, stones, scraps of metal, anything he could fling. Whatever crossed his hand became a deadly missile. Noah, who had just checked the time with Lysandra and seen it was 11:43 p.m., decided to toy with Bullseye first. After midnight, the mission log would refresh. He planned to let the system assign a mission tied to this opponent and then neutralize him to maximize the villain's value. He smiled faintly and said, "You're good at throwing things, right? Here's the game. You throw anything you've got. If you hit my body, you win. As an apology for scaring you, I'll cover my eyes while we play." He pulled his hand up and covered his masked eyes. Bullseye, insulted and furious, launched into a storm of throws. "Noah, Lysandra, calculate the trajectories of his projectiles," he ordered as soon as he obscured his vision. Even with his eyes covered, Lysandra overlaid the positions and flight paths of every hidden weapon onto Noah's facial display, marking them in little red dots. Bullseye's assault came fast and brutal. Noah drew his plasma blade and began cutting. The dots filled his display. He moved the blade in a blur, slicing the incoming arsenal into harmless shreds and deflecting debris to either side. Even weapons Bullseye had conjured by flinging objects off the environment, those geometric, ricocheting strikes, were met and opened by the force of Noah's spinning blade. Clang, 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 metal on metal rang through the alley. Noah's arm moved so fast that Daredevil saw after-images. Bullseye threw everything he had with furious precision, but he couldn't even nick Noah's clothes. Each strike was parried, each threat neutralized. Daredevil watched, impressed. Noah's swordsmanship alone, before you even counted his high-tech armor, was the work of someone at the top of their trade. Eventually, Bullseye's onslaught slowed. He was panting, one hand on his knee, arms trembling from the exertion. There was nothing left on his person or the ground to throw. Noah lowered his arms and checked the time. "You've lost the game," he said. Bullseye, wild with frustration, scrambled into a fighting stance. He lunged, but in an instant, Noah vanished from his sight, and a heavy strike landed against his neck. Bullseye crumpled, unconscious, hitting the ground with a thud. Noah let his blade sheath fall back into place. There were still a few minutes before midnight. Noah planned to wait. "Yasuo, your strength is incredible," Daredevil said as he approached. He looked down at the knocked-out Bullseye and shook his head. "Bullseye is a tricky one for me, but next to you, he was taken down like a child's toy." "It's okay, Daredevil. You're no slouch yourself." Noah turned to him. "How did you end up tangled with Bullseye tonight?" "I'm working on Kingpin and his network," Daredevil replied. "Bullseye was just a stepping stone. I didn't expect him to be so slippery. I almost didn't get him." A few days earlier, after Noah had told him that Kingpin, the overlord of New York's criminal underworld, was behind the attack on him, Daredevil had begun investigating Kingpin's crew. He'd tracked Bullseye's location based on his own inquiries and moved in. "Kingpin?" Noah said. "He's got a lot of reach." "He controls most of the underworld in the States," Daredevil said, jaw tightening. "He's the emperor of the underworld, but I'll bring him down. I'll be rooting for you." Noah clapped Daredevil on the shoulder. He then asked Lysandra to set up a temporary contact method and handed the number to Daredevil. The line would connect directly to Lysandra if called. "Keep this. When you're ready to move on Kingpin, call me. I'll come." Daredevil accepted the number gratefully. "Thanks, Yasuo." Noah checked the clock. It was past midnight, and the daily missions had refreshed. He opened the mission interface. 2 tasks appeared, a C-rank mission to discipline a nearby troublemaker, and a B-rank mission already identified, deal with the enemy currently entangled with Daredevil. Perfect, Noah thought. The objective was Bullseye, lying at his feet. He accepted the mission. "We could turn him over to the New York police," Daredevil suggested. As a lawyer and a man who preferred the law, he believed in due process rather than summary execution. "No," Noah said bluntly. "He's Kingpin's subordinate. If you hand him to the police, he'll be back on the street in no time, and he's done things not worth mercy." He gestured, and Lysandra projected a 3-dimensional record of Bullseye's crimes. Images and reports floated between them: assassinations, armed robberies, collateral deaths. Daredevil watched, anger and sorrow flickering across his face. Do it, Yasuo, Daredevil said quietly. He understood the dilemma. If Bullseye walked free, more people would suffer for it. Better to eradicate the threat now than allow future deaths because one man was spared. Noah nodded. Then I'll take care of it. He drew his plasma blade again. The alley was silent. Bullseye lay unconscious, his body still warm. Noah moved with the same calm precision he'd shown moments before. A single flash of blue light, a clean arc. Before Daredevil could react, the blade had gone through. A faint red line bloomed across Bullseye's neck. Noah retracted the sword and sheathed it. The cut was surgical, faster than blood could even begin to flow. Bullseye was already decapitated. Chapter 19, Lyssandra's Care Service and Money-Making Plan. Task completed. Summoner gains 500 essence. The task immediately showed as completed after Noah killed Bullseye. All right, it's over, Daredevil, Noah said, nodding as the notification appeared. Daredevil, Matthew Murdoch, stared at Bullseye's body with a complicated look in his eyes. By day he was a lawyer, by night a vigilante. Like Batman, he'd long held a strict no-kill rule to avoid becoming the kind of criminal he fought. But the cries of innocent people, the endless suffering, and the cold arithmetic of lives lost had worn that rule thin. The data Noah had just displayed made it impossible for Matthew to spare Bullseye. Noah watched him, uncertain. He didn't know much about Daredevil, only that he existed and was blind. He patted Matthew's shoulder and offered a casual word of concern. "Oh, I'm fine," Daredevil said in his deep voice. Then he paused. "Wait, Mr. Yasuo, I still have something to tell you." Noah turned back. Is there anything else?" Matthew squared his shoulders, a resolute light in eyes that, until recently, had been dim. "Mr. Yasuo, I want to sincerely thank you again. The potion you gave me last time not only healed my wounds, it restored my sight. After decades of darkness, I can see light again. If there is ever anything you need from me, I won't refuse." "No problem," Noah replied. "If you need help, I'll do what I can." He was surprised the health potion had been that effective. He made a mental note to study potions more thoroughly. As for Daredevil's promise, Noah didn't know when he might call on it, so he simply accepted the offer. A moment later, Noah teleported home and took off his armor. Lysandra detached from the suit and floated to his side. Backpack, items, health potion Mach 4, mana potion X3, inventor hero shard X1, ironclad skin shard X1, random hero trial card, 1 day. Equipment, Muramana. Essence, 2,500 points. 2,500 essence already. It's accumulating fast, Noah muttered, scanning his inventory. He pulled out his only synthesized equipment. Muramana, now that I have the plasma-forged battle blade, do I still need you? He examined the beautiful magic sword. The plasma-forged blade was razor-sharp with excellent physical cutting power, but Muramana provided higher magic bonuses. When he imagined performing a wind technique, Muramana's power would edge out the other sword, even if its edge wasn't as keen. After comparing them, he slipped Muramana back into his pack and walked over to the project armor resting in the corner of the living room. If he could stow it in his backpack, it would be far more convenient. He hadn't yet met the conditions to convert the armor into full nano armor. He focused, and the project armor dissolved from the floor and reappeared inside the backpack. "It works," Noah said, pleased. "Now for a shower and bed. Holiday time." He told Lysandra and went to wash up. When he finished, completely refreshed, he headed to bed. Seeing Lysandra hovering nearby, he asked, "Do you need to sleep?" He almost laughed at himself. How could an AI need sleep? Lysandra floated to his bedside. "Noah, I don't need to sleep, but I can provide sleep aid services if you'd like." "Sleep aid? What kind?" "Please lie down first." Noah obliged. Lysandra hovered above him and transformed to a sleek mechanical eye mask that wrapped around his head. Warmth spread over his eyes with a gentle, massaging pressure. His ears were covered too, and soft whispers began. It felt like ASMR, the gentle, tingle-inducing sensation from certain soft sounds and close whispers that relax the body and ease sleep. Noah had only heard about it in his previous life. He'd never tried it. The sensation tickled pleasantly. Before he knew it, lulled by Lysandra's whispers, he drifted off. Morning light pushed the curtains aside. Noah rubbed the corners of his eyes and woke feeling incredibly refreshed. "Ah, so comfortable," he stretched. Lysandra had already pulled the curtains and hovered by the table. "Good morning, Noah." "Good morning, Lysandra. Thank you. Last night was amazing. He still felt the pleasant tingles from her whispers. If you like it, I can provide it whenever you want, she said. Noah brushed his teeth and washed his face, then returned to the living room to find sandwiches and fried eggs laid out. Lysandra set a cup of hot milk in front of him. You've prepared breakfast. You're so thoughtful, he said. She was a perfect housekeeper. Noah felt lucky to have drawn her. It also meant he needed to prioritize building her a body. He ate and thought about money. There would be a lot of expenses coming: a lab, better armor, a physical body for Lysandra. He had only a few $1,000,000 in savings left from his parents, far from enough for everything he wanted to do. Start a company, develop Hextech, launch a pharmaceutical firm based on the health potion. He could have Lysandra manage operations, and with the system's help, he could eventually summon research geniuses like Jace. But those options would take time. He needed something fast. He briefly considered illegal routes, having Lysandra hack networks and siphon funds, but the idea made him uneasy. He would only do that as a last resort. Then an idea struck. He thought about how billionaires made fortunes in other worlds: Stark, T'Challa, and precious resources. Vibranium flashed in his mind. In Marvel, it's worth an astonishing sum, around $10,000 per gram in his thinking. Vibranium came from Wakanda, which was born around a meteorite deposit. But Black Panther 2 had revealed another source: Talocan, the hidden underwater kingdom. Noah mused. Those two places are similar. Both like to fight with spears and keep their secrets. He pictured the tribal clashes from the movie. I'll try to get some of their vibranium. Wakanda's far. Talocan might be easier to reach. If it fell from the sky, I can use it too. Taking a little bit shouldn't be too much, right? Chapter 20, A-Level Tasks. On a New York beach by the Atlantic, people clustered everywhere, sunbathing, playing, a dense swarm of bodies that looked like ants from the dunes. Noah stepped over blankets and sleeping figures and walked toward the water. He wore nothing but beach shorts and a short shirt with the buttons undone, his enhanced physique on full display. Heads turned as he passed. I don't get why Americans love sunbathing so much, he muttered, staring out over the ocean. The deep-sea nation of Talocan was somewhere down there, buried beneath the waves, but he didn't know exactly where. Hey, handsome, can you help us with some sunscreen? A charming voice called from behind him. Noah turned. A beautiful woman with long, wavy blonde hair in a bikini held up a bottle of sunscreen and shook it at him. Beside her stood another beauty, blue-haired and just as fit. She looked at Noah with watery eyes, then winked and blew him a kiss. Is this a pickup line? Noah thought, amused. In both his lives, he'd never experienced this. No wonder, he really was too good-looking. Between his natural looks and the enhancements from the Summoner's Hero panel and the Resolve rune, his body was practically perfect. People even assumed he was a celebrity. I can't, Noah began with a grin, then decided to tease. I'm only 16. I've got things to do, and besides, what you're asking is illegal. You're only 16, the blonde scoffed, reaching out to touch his abs. I don't buy it. How can someone so young be this muscular? Noah blinked. She just reached out like it was nothing. Americans were awfully forward. Thinking quickly, he shouted behind them, Look! Iron Man! Ah, Iron Man over there! The women spun around, and several beachgoers glanced back. When no one saw Iron Man, the crowd grumbled. Who's yelling nonsense? Cut that out! What a jerk! The blonde, embarrassed and annoyed, turned back, only to find Noah gone. She angrily kicked sand as she realized she'd been fooled. Noah's figure slipped out from behind a nearby reef. He had used Ghost Step as everyone looked away, passing casually through the crowd to reach the shelter of the rocks. Noah, you're pretty popular with humans, Lysandra remarked in his ear. Of course I am, Noah replied, unfazed. The enhancements hadn't just changed his body, his presence, his temperament, everything felt sharper. I'll sculpt your face when we make you a body, he told Lysandra. I want you to look like Lysandra from League of Legends, an unbeatable beauty. Lysandra chuckled. If that's what you want, I'll look forward to it. She could change her face at will, but if Noah had a preference, she'd accept it. Noah glanced at the watch on his wrist. Lysandra had taken the form of a wristwatch using nanotechnology so he wouldn't attract attention in a crowd. Carrying a floating high-tech device would have been too conspicuous. Vibranium is down here somewhere, but I don't know the exact deposit, he said. Maybe I can use the task system to set a vibranium search task. If he had to comb the entire ocean floor himself, finding a vibranium vein would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. In the movies, a genius had invented a detector device, but Noah had no idea where to find such a person. The system, though, maybe it could help. He opened the summoner interface and tried to designate a task to locate vibranium. A loading icon spun, then a task message appeared. A-level task, obtain vibranium ore. Seize the vibranium ore from the underwater kingdom of Talokan. It worked, and it's an A-level task. Noah's pulse quickened. Everything he'd received from the system before had been B or C level. This was his first A-level assignment. A-level, does that mean I have to take on all of Talokan? He wondered aloud. If this meant fighting a nation, the difficulty would be enormous. Talokan had vibranium and powerful defenses, even if their depiction in the films wasn't stellar. And this was underwater. He didn't even know if his battle armor would function beneath the sea. He hesitated. Even sneaking in to mine vibranium would take time to prepare. Did the task have a deadline? System, do tasks have time limits? If I accept this today, can I complete it later? He asked. System tasks do not have a time limit, nor do they have an acceptance limit. If you accept a task today and do not complete it, it will not affect your ability to accept daily tasks refreshed the following day. That settles it, Noah said, smiling with renewed confidence. He would accept the task and prepare properly. He clicked to accept. Accepted. A-level task, obtain vibranium ore. Since this is the summoner's first A-level difficulty task, the system will provide some assistance. System is assessing task difficulty. Assessment complete. Creating suitable task assistance tools for the summoner. Noah frowned. He hadn't expected additional prompts after accepting the task. What kind of assistance would the system offer? Detected summoner backpack item. Random hero experience one day. Currently transforming item. Transformation successful. Random hero experience card 1 day has been transformed into River King. Tom Kench experience card lasts until task completion. Tom Kench, Noah blurted. Tom Kench was a tanky support from League of Legends, an ancient, demonic river king with demigod strength. So I have to complete this task in Tom Kench's form? Noah asked himself, staring at the image on the card. He had planned to accept the task and then come back later when he was better prepared to face Talokan. Instead, the system had just handed him a powerful transformation that might let him try right away. Lysandra, change back for a moment, he said. If he transformed into the bulky Tom Kench while she was still in a humanoid form, he might crush her by accident. Okay, Noah. With a shimmer, Lysandra reverted to her spherical watch form. No big deal. I'm going to shift into another form and dive down to get that vibranium, Noah told her, amusement and excitement in his voice. I wonder how strong Tom Kench will be. I'm looking forward to it. He held the experience card in his hand and prepared to begin the task.